Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick onto any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minka Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clellan Farrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt Allen.
Ooh boy, and just like that, we are back and getting set for UFC Fight Night. Big Boy and Vettori and Matt, I absolutely love it. Both fighters, incredible professionals in our main event because you know what, Matt? They both made championship weight. If we had a belt on the line, we would be all good and everything would be great and grand. Oh wait! One of those guys is incredibly unprofessional, made a joke of the whole week. Probably if he wins has nothing to do with the rankings. And if he fights again, he's going to take on the winner of Kyle Dawkins and Kevin Holland. Of course, I'm talking about our man to the left. And it's not you. I'm talking about Paulo Costa. Matt! Paulo Costa, what are we doing here? I mean, hey, Bappa, this is dicey. I don't know how many different poor old B-Shab things that I can throw out there. Matt, everybody in the chat's having a good time. Matt Adams is over there and on time. I'm just kidding. Justin Frank's hitting us up with the super chat. Justin is in the chat every day, every week. He's loving the FNP. Landing Productions having a good time. And Daniel, Sarnas, and Clay as well. Matt, I love this fight overall. I'm really looking forward to question mark kicks because we have 14 fights. Will we get every single one right? Most likely not, but I am overall looking forward to this one. I think it should be a great one. I want to hear from everybody in the comments section because there's been a lot of great points brought up over the last couple of weeks about some of these 50-50 fights, some of these tricky ones, and I just might have a question mark kicks parlay. I'm going to throw down a little $5 pro line and have a little bit of fun. But yeah, Matt, overall, I'm really eager to see this card. I think it's going to be a good one.
I think it will be a fun card, but we do have to address those situations surrounding the main event. This is what I'm going to say. As of right now, we still kind of have to break this main event down as if both guys were 185 pounds, if that makes any sense. Like, my prediction isn't going to change just because of their weigh-in, and I still do like Marvin Vettori at this point in the week, as I did earlier on in the week. This is the thing, though, for Paulo Costa. He had the chance to kind of erase that last performance, not from history. Of course, everyone would remember Adesanya beating him, but still, let's say he comes out, knocks out Marvin Vettori in the second round, makes weight, looks professional, calls it the champ again, then there's a real world where Costa finds himself back in a title shot by, okay, maybe not the end of this year, but the end of next year. That's a real possibility. Now, like you said, what are we even doing here? Costa wins. Do we consider it a middleweight win? Do we throw him into the light heavyweight rankings? Like, this didn't have to be a confusing week, but all of a sudden we have many more questions than answers.
At the start of the week, we had it as a possible fight of the night. I think you take it out of fight of the night territory. I think it's going to be one of those ones, either Costa gets the early knockout, like everybody's saying over there in the comments section, or Marvin makes it his fight, and I think that might not be the one that people want. But oh wait, now all of a sudden he's a fan favorite, so I'm eager to see this one. I threw it out there on Twitter. I'm at Craig Allen FNP. The fact that the UFC's post-fight press conference picture, just in their thumbnail, it's just a cool-looking Marvin Vettori. Like, forget about Paulo Costa. So yeah, this is a really tricky one for me. Matt, we move into our second pick for fight of the night. But it's not Lacerda anymore. It's Daniel Da Silva, and we'll talk about that later on. But he's taking on Jeff Molina. I love this fight. And listen, fight of the night screen, not necessarily a spot for the QMK parlay to begin. I've got Jeff Molina as the first leg of the QMK parlay at a minus 170. But I think this fight, it's tricky though, because honestly, at the start of the week, I had this as a 50-50. I think it is a very, very close fight. I really love this one.
Yeah, De Silva's gonna have a really good chance to introduce himself to the UFC fans in this fight, because if you watch Jeff Molina's first UFC fight, please do. If you didn't, go back and do it. He is fun. He's got volume. He's got power. He's got kicks. He's got punches. This is a great introduction for De Silva to come into the UFC. I think both guys are going to become fan favorites throughout their UFC careers.
Disul Talas is saying, was this taped a week ago? Well, we're responding to you, so unless we're time-traveling wizards, then no. Matt, I do really like this fight. Fight of the Night screen is always presented by Manscaped. Check them out at manscaped.com. Use promo code FMP. You'll get 20% off and free shipping. Matt, over in the comments section, Tyler James hitting us with the super chat saying, who benefits with the heavier weight, Vettori or Costa? Costa in the first round. After that, it's not just a wash. I think it heavily favors Vettori.
It's going to be both at all times, because there's going to be a give and take with all of this. And the real question is, why did Paulo Costa miss weight? Or why was he not able to weigh in at 185 pounds? Because the first thing my mind always goes to is you either had an injury in your training camp and you weren't able to train at 100%, and that's why the weight didn't come off, or you just don't really care that much anymore. And those are two real big factors that do matter. Like, if your heart's not in fighting anymore, then the last thing I want you to be doing is be locked in a cage with a guy like Marvin Vettori, who can go a hard 25 minutes, who never gives up. But, like you said, I do think early on that weight is going to help Costa. He is the bigger, stronger guy. So if he is able to keep Marvin off of him, at least earlier on in the fight, it should help him.
Luis Rodriguez hitting us up in the super chat for time-traveling MMA wizards. If we were time travelers, we'd also be clairvoyants, and all these picks would be 100% every week. But that just won't happen. We're going to do our best on this one. But yeah, Matt, when I look at this fight, it really is tricky. If this is your first time with question mark kicks, A, we thank you. B, toss a like, and if you can, subscribe. But Matt, 157 right now. I think we're going to crack 500 on this one. It's a giant card. People are going to be tuning in left, right, and center. And there's 14 fights to talk about. No big scares other than this main event on weigh-in day. Everybody fit and ready. And honest to goodness, I was surprised because a lot of people made championship weight. Now, sometimes you worry, hey, commission here, commission there. How do they actually weigh people in? Who's the guy or gal hitting the scales, like kind of tap, tap, tap in the old-timey scale? But
they're in Vegas, though.
There were a lot of professionals, and they were in Vegas. So, Matt, let's go bottom to top on this one. Again, let us know in the comment section who you have in some of these fights because, Matt, we start off with a fight that's incredibly controversial. So I'm going to start it this way. Over at Fight Night Picks on Instagram for the votes on this one, 50-50 Martinez, Lazishvili. If we look at it in terms of numbers, 99 for Martinez to like 92 for Lazishvili. So I guess now it's 52% to 48%. Those in favor of Martinez. Matt, a lot of people, like, again, I said this when we taped the video. Then I actually said it in the video. Then all week, or for the last couple of days, because this one's on very short notice, everybody came out and said, you guys are doubting Lazishvili. You guys don't think Lazishvili's going to win. Pick Martinez and said, wait for question mark kicks. Matt, I really like Lazishvili's game. I think he's a very, very special fighter, very fun fighter. I had a whole page of notes on this one. Kyle saying, are we related to Ray Allen? We've been in the same building as Ray Allen once, so there's that, right?
I had a similar high school game to him.
Shut up. But Matt, when I look at this fight, I absolutely love this one. Martinez, obviously, with his striking prowess. For Lazishvili, he's a guy whose father in Georgia was a wrestling coach. Didn't want him to go that path. His father didn't. So he went into academia. He wrestled a little bit, and then he fought, and then he comes into LFA, full head of steam, a long, long layout between fights. First fight, has success. Later on in the fight in the third round, gets kind of pieced up a little bit in the striking. Ultimately wins it. 3 unanimous 29-28s on that one. His last time out, big time finish win to win that LFA bantamweight belt. We brought up some of the names, Matt. I'm going to bring them up one more time. Leandro Higo, your first LFA champ there. Ricky Simone. Then you have, oh my goodness, Miles Johns, Casey Kenny, and now you have Lazishvili. I think he's such a special fighter. Doesn't seem like a lot of people in the comment section right now are going with him, but on this one, Matt, our big question mark was, can Martinez make weight? Both these guys come in at 135 on the nose.
Now my next question mark is, how good can Jonathan Martinez actually look while making the weight? It always feels like there's another question we have to ask about the career about Jonathan Martinez, and maybe I'm the reason for it because I hyped him up a little bit too much. And hey, I've been guilty about that with fighters in the past, but with Martinez, I don't think we're just dealing with some unranked fighter. Like, he does have some skills that set him apart from just your average unranked bantamweight.
A particular set of skills?
He does have a particular set of skills. Don't steal his daughter in France, I guess. Here's the thing about Martinez, though. When he's on the outside, he will have have a ton of success. I do worry about him anytime fighters get on the inside of his punching range, because he does have really good kicks, he has great punches and strikes on the outside, but look what Davy Grant was able to do. Davy Grant made that an ugly fight, and Davy from the Navy can do that with pretty much anybody in the UFC, but still, when I've seen that happen to you, and when one sort of wrench in the spokes of your game, when that just wrecks everything, I worry about you moving forward. And with a guy like Lazishvili, who can make the fight ugly, not just he can make a fight ugly, that's really what his game plan is. I do worry about Jonathan Martinez in a type of fight like this, but I'm the person who said he's got a ceiling in the top 15. I really do think he is a special prospect. And if I do believe that, which I still kind of do, I have to believe he's going to be able to beat Lazishvili today.
Yeah, when I look at this fight, I mean, it really is tricky. When you look at the odds for it, you have Martinez. He opened a plus 140. He's now a minus 107. When you look at it for Lazishvili, he opened a minus 170. He's minus 113. Again, he hasn't fought in about a year or so that is a really tricky one as well. He was fit and ready, getting ready for this one in DC, where he does train, and I want to make sure I give them props at Kaizen MMA with coaches Nima Mazzani and Tony Walkecker. Matt, yeah, in this fight, it really is a tricky one, but for me, I do have Martinez ever so slightly if he's able to keep it on the outside. And the one thing that I saw at Lazishvili in his second to last fight, which was, again, it's almost 2 years ago. That's why these ones are big 50-50 fights. You sit there and you worry, and if you get it wrong, boom goes the dynamite, and you look like an idiot. I think Lazishvili is a very special fighter. He's a guy we're going to see around 135 for a long time. I mean, look at it. We were talking about it before this even started. I said, hey, Hany Barcelos is fighting a guy like Trevin Jones. How close they are being ranked? I'd say maybe like 30 to 20, somewhere in that block. I think Lazishvili can get into that area with a couple of wins, and then boom goes the dynamite. And that's even in a very, very good division. Like, bantamweight's stacked. For me, I have Martinez in this one as a slight underdog. Had him at the start of the week, going with him now. But again, very, very distinct game plans. If Lazishvili wins this one, he takes Martinez down, who's had, 64% takedown defense in his UFC run so far. So it very well could happen. But yeah, for me, I've got Martinez. You got Martinez.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, we'll move into our next fight. We have Livinha Souza taking on Randa Markos, the Canadian who's been somewhat transplanted in her last 2 training camps, training out of Travis Luter's gym, the gym that gave Kevin Holland his black belt, but didn't teach him how to wrestle. Matt, in this one, it is a very fun fight because for Souza, she definitely has a great pedigree with jiu-jitsu and judo. She's black belt in both disciplines. For Randa Markos, she had a fight of the year possibility against Jessica Penne in her UFC debut. What was that, 7 years ago? And since then, it was 50-50 until she's lost her last 4 fights. So Markos, it's always been a good level of competition. For Souza, great level of competition with Invicta. In the UFC, it's been kind of a mixed bag so far. She's beaten not the greatest of fighters. She's lost to pretty good fighters. I mean, I think Amanda Lemos is an amazing fighter. So it really is tricky. When you look at this one, each of them have great success when it goes to the ground. When it's in the striking, it could be a wash. If it's Souza and she's on her game, she's obviously a much better striker than Markos, but we've seen her struggle in some of those 50-50 exchanges too, and that's what worries me in this fight.
And Randa Markos is just hard to hit clean. She carries her shoulders high. That's like a weird thing that she does. Normally it's hands high. She's shoulders high. But she does. She just has a good defensively sound style. It's hard to just go out there, one hitter quitter, knock out Randa Markos. Now, I don't really think Souza has that type of power to begin with, but this fight's only going to go one of 2 ways. Either Souza is the slightly more active fighter on the feet, can maybe mix in a takedown attempt here and there to keep Randa Markos guessing, or Randa Markos just shoots takedowns, doesn't focus on her striking at all, and just wins this fight with her wrestling. Because Randa Markos was a fighter who had been adding new parts to her game, but it feels like she's sort of reached a level where she was like, okay, I can add new things into my game, or I can just keep on wrestling. And wrestling's kind of what I do best to begin with. And it's not like those other aspects of my MMA game are really going to reach the level of my wrestling. So why not just steer into my wrestling? And hey, I really like that. I thought that was a great idea. Until she fought another primary wrestler in Kanaka Murata. And Murata just completely outgrappled her.
Olympic level wrestling.
I understand. But when Randa Markos is a highly, highly experienced MMA fighter, is a great MMA wrestler, I don't really care what Murata's Olympic experience was. was. Randa Markos is who we think of when we think of a top-level MMA wrestler, especially in this weight division. And the fact that now we are starting to see her get out-grappled and just get outpaced in places that she was having a lot of success to begin her UFC career in, it's just really disheartening. And I do think we're seeing sort of the back nine of Randa Markos' career.
No way!
I know, hot take by me, but it's just... She was a decent level athlete who could go out there and get a lot of those takedowns, but once your athleticism does start to slip and it's harder for you to get those offensive takedowns, listen, do I think Randa Markos can hand her own in a couple scrambles with Souza? I really do. I think she can go out there, scramble for a little bit, but ultimately probably end up on bottom, and that's just kind of how I see this fight going.
All right, Matt, we have a look at the odds for this one. Randa Markos, the underdog, she opened a plus 130. She's plus 109 right now. For Souza, she opened a minus 150. She's at a minus 131. Let's have a look at Fight Night Picks over on the Instagrams for this one. 67% going with Souza to the 33% that have Markos. Justin Franks is saying lowest MMA IQ ever, but I don't know if you're still talking about Jai Herbert. Everybody's moved on to that fight. They don't really care about this fight. I still have the underdog in this fight. I still have Markos, but again, I've been on the Souza train the whole time until the Lemos fight, and when I look at this one, it's just the matchup. It's Randa Markos going into the last fight of her deal, wanting to fight it out, really, really putting time and effort into not just training at home in Windsor, still going strong at Looters, and really accentuating the things that she's already good at. I think she has a good shot against Souza in this one. But I see this one obviously going to a decision. So if you like that prop, I think that one's absolutely fine. I don't see either one of these women finishing each other. And I think Souza obviously has more of an opportunity to do it. But in this one, yeah, I still have Markos here.
Yeah, I think Souza will be able to get it done. But I don't have that much confidence in the pick.
No, and that's 100% fair, Matt. Let's move on to our next one. Is it Daniel Lacerda? Is it Daniel De Silva? We just changed our name during fight week. Hey, let's have a little bit of fun. But if you go over to the USADA website where they have the results from their test, it's Daniel D. Lacerda. On UFC stats and UFC website at the start of the week, it was Daniel Lacerda. And then in the last 2 days, it's De Silva. So we'll just call him by what he's going on. Let's have a little bit of fun, Matt. Daniel De Silva's taking on Jeff Molina. I'm looking forward to this fight almost as much as like some of the other big like marquee fights. I think this is a great one between a couple of top prospects for Jeff Molina at flyweight in his debut against Archie Long. Fight of the night, UFC 261. What was that? That was a giant pay-per-view card. It was huge. The return of the fans. And Daniel Lacerda is a guy coming out of ATS team in Brazil, trains with Alex Oliveira. The poor man's comp is he fights like Oliveira, but if you actually watch him fight, you can see similarities in their game where they're long in their division. They throw a lot of kicks. They can switch stances. And if you look at it for De Silva, Lacerda, he's the type of guy that can get it done even when his back's on the mat, and he is a very special fighter. His wrestling defense isn't great, but he makes up for that in his grappling when it does go to the ground, and he can reverse a lot of bad positions. So it's the crazy, wild style of Lacerda where he can kind of take some liberties in the fact that, yeah, I can kind of leave myself open. I can throw some spinning stuff, and that's how he's been able to win some fights, whereas Jeff Molina is one of those technical guys. Even at the end of the fight, he did start to get hit by Archie Long, but that was an absolute war. I love this fight, Matt. Mike Jenkins finally got to catch us live. I'm glad about that. What are you thinking on this one here?
This should be a phenomenal fight. Like, I don't know if we're ever going to reach a point in sports where we value players based on, like, points per dollar earned. But if we ever start valuing fighters based on entertainment per pound, Jeff Molina is going to be on that list, and he's probably going to be near the top of that list. Because...
Well, Dana White probably does rank them on pound per dollar because, you know, on a 10-10 contract or a 12-12 contract, when you're putting on fights like that, everybody wins. Well, the house wins.
So the thing about Molina is that he has really good kicks on the outside, and that wasn't something that I felt like I'd mentioned well enough in this breakdown video, because I went back and watched the initial breakdown video and just some more of Jeff Molina. His kicks are kind of underrated. I always thought of Jeff Molina more as a guy who would get into your range to try to box you up, but he can really kick his way into that range, and that's what I like about Molina. He's not just someone who has to rush forward. Yes, we saw that a lot in his last fight, but he can play both games. He can strike moving forward. He can strike moving backwards. I do worry about him getting caught in some fights and just overall fatigue, because I think Jeff Molina is going to be in one of those categories where he doesn't have bad cardio, but we might see him tire in a lot of third rounds throughout his fight just because his output is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't think he has a style where you can just say, okay, Jeff, turn that down all of a sudden. I do think that the output is directly tied to his success in the cage. So I just think that'll be something that he'll have to work on as he gets older. And that's the good thing about Molina. He still is fairly young in his career. And if he is relying a lot on his sort of craziness and technique now. If he can refine some of that technique moving forward and sort of take the gas off the pedal just a little bit. I know we've both been excited about how exciting of a fighter he is, but if he does want to crack into that top 15, top 10 category where I could definitely see him get one day, I do think we'll need to see a little bit more evolution in his game.
The odds haven't really changed on this fight throughout the week. Molina open to -170. You've got De Silva open to +145. They're still there right now. I have Jeff Molina as the first leg of the question mark kicks parlay. I'm getting back into it. Mike Jenkins hitting us up in the super chat. Love the content, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
You guys rock. I appreciate it. The super chat before that was just a trap. Look at that. Bennett Charles. Haven't stopped winning since I started following you guys. You kill it every week. Have any parlay suggestions? I'm going incredibly light. I'm going with Molina as the first leg. I like him in this fight, again, based on that technique. And Mike Money is asking about where can you find parlays and different things. Well, on this show, because it's a Saturday morning type of thing when I come up with them, but also there's a full card betting guide by our own Joshua Hart. You can find that at fightnightpicks.com. Link down below in the description. Matt, again, yeah, I do think that it is a very close one, but I do like Molina, again, based on the technique, because if you look at it for Lacerda, he's one of those guys where he starts from southpaw, he throws kicks, and he'll go leg, body, head. Like, I love his game, and I think he's going to be around for a long time in the UFC. Leg, body, head, then he goes orthodox. As long as a guy like James Krause has kind of downloaded that game plan and really implemented it with his fighter, I think Molina's got a great opportunity here.
The last time we saw James Krause in a cage, he told his fighter he had won two.
Bad.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what I'd be putting all my faith into right now. I'm a little bit worried about the kicking range for Jeff Molina because, again, it is a strength for him, but what De Silva is so good at, he can vary his kicks way better than Molina can. I always go back to when Anthony Pettis fought Rafael dos Anjos, and yes, RDA can kick, but Joe Rogan, this might be the last time Joe Rogan said something that I was like, wow, that was really good, but what he said was, look at the way RDA throws his body kick. It's a great body kick, but there's that wind up to it first, whereas with Anthony Pettis, his foot's on the ground, it's at your body, and then it's back down. There's no wind up in the kick. I think De Silva has much faster kicks in this fight, and that's the only thing that worries me out of the Molina camp, I guess. If De Silva is able to stay on the outside and really chop down on those legs and chop to the body early in this fight, I think it can put enough water in the basement to really slow Molina down, but I do still like Molina in this pick.
Kyle the Doc saying throw a like for the boys, and Alex keeps asking when does Marvin versus Costa start? Like 6-7 hours from now? You got a little bit of time because there's 14 fights on this card, and guess what? Next weekend there's 15 fights on that card. All right, Matt, we move into our next one. Khama Worthy versus Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert's been knocked out and submitted in his last two fights. Khama Worthy's been knocked out in his last two fights. To say glass cannon would be an understatement at this very juncture where we're at right now. Matt, I mean, Jai Herbert comes in with that boxing, comes in with that tough, tall style. He's very, very slippery. If it does get to the ground and it's in his control. If it's in his control, and you're not fighting a guy like Moicano, who just had a fight announced. Very fun stuff. It was announced today. When I look at this one, Khama Worthy, long-range weapons, decent kicks, but again, when you catch Khama Worthy flush, it's game, set, and match. So this is a really tough one. We talked about it before, the fact that Worthy's the type of guy that he can have a lot of success. He has that pop at the end of his shots, and at 155, his chin was not bad and hadn't really been checked. He hadn't been knocked out since 2012. Then he fights Jamie Mullarkey, backs up with his hands down and gets caught by a hook and gets knocked down onto his face. So I think it should be a great one, Matt. It is a very, very interesting fight. But when I look at this one, for me, I ever so slightly like Herbert, but we looked at the odds before this fight. Fight doesn't go the distance is -300. You don't see that every day.
You really don't, but it makes sense. Like, I'm so excited for this fight. I really am, because Jai Herbert, if he's gonna win, you know how he does it? Probably by knockout. When Khama Worthy loses, how does he normally lose? By knockout. And then flip it again. How does Khama Worthy win? Well, oddly enough, he's good at submissions too, but he is really good at knockouts. And with Jai Herbert, I don't have a good read on the guy, and I can openly say that. Like, I thought he would be better than he has been, don't get me wrong, but I still have never had this crazy, like, ceiling for Jai Herbert, and that's why today, I just don't really know where he fits in the division, because I know he had a lot of hype on his way into the UFC. I've watched his previous fights. I know how good he looked in Cage Warriors, but if you just focus on his last two performances, he barely looks like UFC caliber. And I know they've been against good fighters, and the same thing can be said for Khama Worthy. It's not like either one of these guys are in the rankings anytime soon. It's just, I find it really hard to judge where I put Jai Herbert in this division, and I don't really know where he is moving forward. And I don't really know what a winner
Where the hell's Khama Worthy?
Again, Craig, I don't really know what this fight does for either guy, but I know it's going to be entertaining. The way I look at it, though, is that Khama has these slightly heavier hands. Now, he also has a bit of a detractor from that. He is the more fragile guy, so I kind of think it makes them both very even. I think Khama, if he hits you, it's going to hit a little bit worse, but if he gets hit, it's going to take a little bit more of an effect. I guess I just like the longer range weapons of Worthy a slightly bit more. Now, I don't think he's going to go out there, throw out the jab, throw an overhand right, and just finish the fight. But if he is able to mix in his low calf kicks, if he is able to mix in his jab, I do think he can have some success on the feet and land a big shot. But again, this fight more than any is, whoever lands that first big shot is going to win. And it's as clear, cut, and dry as that.
Little bit of a surprise to me at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram. 60% going with Herbert to 40% going with Worthy. If I'm not mistaken, Worthy's a favorite in this fight. Let me bring it up. Best fight odds. Have a little bit of fun. No, Jai Herbert's a favorite. Open to minus 105. He's a minus 182 right now. Khama Worthy open to minus 115. He's a plus 152. I think you're going to get a finish. Again, if I could be Fight Night Picks and not Fight Night Pick a fighter, it would be fight doesn't go the distance minus 300. But if I have to make a pick, I had Herbert at the start of the week. I still have him. I think he's a little bit more technical of a striker, but the wildness could play into the factor for Khama Worthy. We've seen that before. And was he able to kind of throw an exchange with his buddy there, Devontae Smith? Yeah, he was. And I still think Smith's a good fighter.
Good against Louis Payne.
Yeah, even losing against Merlicki there recently. But for me, yeah, I'm going to go with Herbert here still.
Yeah, whoever lands first is going to win. I just think Worthy's going to land first.
Which is fair. All right, Matt, we move into our next one. We have Jamie Pickett taking on Laureano Staropoli. And again, you're talking about two guys who are down bad. These guys are on losing streaks that are not that great. Billy Brown hitting us up in the super chat. Billy, I appreciate you. Thank you for the kind words. Laureano Staropoli actually weighed in a pound heavier than Jamie Pickett. Not going to be the bigger, taller, rangier guy. He gives up a lot in terms of reach in this fight, which he almost would be when he's at 170, and he still does when he's at 185. So thickness coming in from Argentina. You got Jamie Pickett coming out of North Carolina. I think this is a very, very interesting fight because I wonder if either guy even attempts to take it down to the mat.
I think Staropoli will at some point, just because he's going to be the one closing the distance so often throughout this fight, and you really did set it up perfectly. Jamie Pickett looks quite a bit bigger. Like, if you just saw these two guys walking down the street, not cutting weight, just at their, walk-around weight, I would assume Jamie Pickett is much larger just to look at.
Like, he's a guy that probably struggles to buy long-sleeve shirts.
Without a doubt. Now, and that's going to be a big, huge success for Pickett in this fight because he's going to be able to hit Staropoli from so far away. But it is a negative, too. If Laureano is able to get on the inside of his range, he is the much more active fighter. And if he is able to go body, head, mixing combinations, and I'm not necessarily saying go for the takedown or even secure the takedown, but at least mix it in. Just make Jamie Pickett think. Because for Laureano to have success in this fight, he can't just stick on the outside and try to throw volume shots, I don't think. If he works his way on the inside, then yeah, that volume is going to pay off. But I don't like Staropoli just giving looks away on the outside. I know that was my big point when Aljamain Sterling fought Piotr Jan. It was, well, you just do too much on the outside. You're almost giving your opponent more information than you should. I could see Laureano kind of falling into that early in this fight, but I do think if he can get on the inside, he'll have a ton of success.
Austin Laxton over there in the chat was saying, does, who was it? Pickett get cut if he loses. Either guy gets cut if they lose. You don't lose 4 fights in a row and stick around unless you're Randa Markos or
Sam Alvey,
Andrei Arlovsky. And for Pickett, yeah, he gets cut if he loses. Just like, I think Jai Herbert, Khama Worthy, loser leaves town. I mean, Modestas Bukauskas.
It's got like his CM Punk Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, he got his knee imploded and he had to leave town. So when we look at the odds for this one, at the start of the week, Staropoli was a big favorite. He was a big favorite the last time we previewed this fight. He opened to minus 240, he's minus 221. Pickett opened a plus 200. He's now a plus 183. I think if this fight touches the ground, I think it's Pickett's world. I don't think it's Staropoli's. Pickett is the much more adept guy on the ground. And again, Staropoli's going to have to close the distance. Can those long-range weapons work for Pickett? Can he establish a quick pace? I think he goes out there on his Tyron Woodley. If he does, he could very well get caught. But I think if he's able to keep a pace, it could make this one very interesting. We've seen Staropoli struggle against grapplers to the nth degree. Where does Jamie Pickett fall along that? Eddie Fry Jr. saying, take the underdog here, fellas. I'm taking the underdog with Pickett here. And I've taken a fair amount of underdogs so far. Go ahead.
I think cough. I think we both have. Yeah, I still like Staropoli in this.
All right, that much is fair. I thought you'd talk a little bit more to hide the cough. I have something in my throat, Matt. Tabatha Ricci's taking on Maria Oliveira. We had some not so nice things to say about Maria Oliveira at the start of the week. Because that record is like Swiss cheese.
Deceiving.
And you can poke a lot of holes through it. So, Matt, when I look at this fight, again, it is tricky. 448 people tuning in right now.
What's up, guys?
We got to get over 100 likes. We got to get up there in that 300 mark. That's the benchmark I set for myself every week. If we can do it, maybe a little bit of a shot of a Poirier's hot sauce. Just a little squirt of a Poirier's hot sauce to give the people what they want. But in this one, Maria Oliveira, the losses that she had, coming into the UFC, or at least coming into Contender Series, I look at that 2-fight block where she loses to Kana Asakura, who I think on her best day would be a fun fighter in the UFC. She has a little bit of success in the striking, and then when she gets taken down, she just holds on for dear life and doesn't want to exchange in the grappling. Then she goes into her next fight. She loses to Marina Rodriguez, future title challenger Marina Rodriguez, but in that fight has a little bit of success in some of those flurries, and then gets hit a couple of times, walks away and goes like this and gives up. And it's not like Rodriguez is punching her and she goes like this. She just walks away and goes, nope, I'm done. Don't like that. Don't like that one bit. So I've had a really hard time with this one because for Tabatha Ricci, she has every single credential outside the cage. Jiu-Jitsu black belt, judo black belt, Muay Thai national champion, all of these things. Trains at the biggest gyms in California. And it's like F1. If you have a rich dad and you can pay for the car, you can do anything. It's like racing. Racing happens like that.
You don't watch F1, Greg.
Tabatha Ricci's one of those ones where she has everything. It's just, can we get it going inside of the cage? Let's see what happens. I mean, for her, poor level of competition, but the same can be said for both of these two women. And for Oliveira, you go back and you watch her last fight. She's fighting in a gym, I get it, pandemic conditions, against somebody whose name is different than the topology than it is on the YouTubes. But oh, by the way, she's a debuting fighter, and all they did was strike. She gets hit by a knee to the body and goes, I give up too. So I have a really hard time, Matt. I mean, for me, Ricci's got everything. She's all that in a bag of potato chips. And for Oliveira, she struggles on the ground. Is Ricci going to have that trouble kind of breaking that distance? That's the biggest question here.
This is my question about this fight, and I kind of like how you had started this video. Maria Oliveira's record is kind of like that song 3 dressed up as a 9. You just look at it, and for face value, it's pretty good.
Do you think a lot of people out there know April Wine?
Probably not, but they should. Halifax finest. Anyways, it looks really good if you just look at the record. You're like, wow, what a lot of wins, a lot of finishes. This is all great. But then once you do the deep dive, it's over subpar levels of competition. And when you actually go back and watch the film, I'm not that impressed with Oliveira. But this is going to be the flip side. And you might not like what I'm going to say, but I'd really like to get your opinion on this. This fight for me is only a question of if Ricci can actually get her out of cage skills into an actual MMA cage. Ricci for me is kind of like, she's like a 2K My Career player who just put their stats into like playing the games against the AI and not the rec against actual people. You know what I mean? Because if you just look at what she does, I agree with everything you said. She's got the jiu-jitsu, she's got the judo, like all of her skills look phenomenal on paper. But when you actually look at her in the cage, it's just, nothing translates as well as you'd really like it to. So, I think if she goes out there, wins this fight against Oliveira, let's say she submits her in the first round, then yes, I'll have a lot more confidence in her moving forward, and I'll definitely pick her and pick her with more confidence after this. But, I do have, there's a lot of weird question marks around this fight because I could see a world where both fighters don't look all that great, but I do like the overall grappling of Ricci, and I do like the fact that if she really has to go to what is my best skill, then I do like her ability to get the fight to the mat.
Real News MMA, Clay Loiseau, who hit us up in the super chat saying, thanks, lad. Ooh, what a night.
Everything will be all right.
Everything will be all right. Come and love me tonight. Guzbach is saying, say hello. So there are a few fans out there of April Wine. I've got the April Wine record somewhere in here.
Probably my favorite band ever.
You know what record I have, like, actually here? I bought Watts in a Tank by Diesel because I like the song Sausalito Summer Night. It was the #1 hit in Canada in 1981. In this fight, Matt, I am Maria Oliveira. 74% of the fans at Fight Night picks have her to get the win. She is a very large favorite. I wouldn't put any cheddar on this. Well, actually, she's not that big of a favorite. She opened a -180. She's -266. Oliveira opened a +155. She's +215. So you know what? If you like it, go with it. There's too many variables in this one, but I like the fight. I've got Ricci here. Next one. Mason Jones, David Onama, who weighed in, Matt, a little bit under that 155, and Mason Jones weighing in at 156. Voodoo saying, dude, my granddad was a drummer for Diesel. Pim Koopman. Matt,
That's
the
pretty
weirdest
cool.
part about it is, I was reading about the last name. I saw the name Pim Koopman and went, though that's not a very English name. That's craziness. I'm a big Diesel fan. So,
cool.
yeah, that's a lot of fun. Matt, in this fight, I love it. So we spent probably 3/4 of the video pumping the tires of Onama just to pick Mason Jones.
Yep.
Still love David Onama. Still love this fight. But again, the weight, the incredible short notice nature of it, Onama's got to catch him quick because I see this one being, the tide and you mistaking tide for erosion. But I really like Mason Jones here.
Mason Jones gonna win this fight. This thing for Onama, he's just not in the right weight class. And you're fighting someone who honestly might not even be in the right weight class themselves. Like, if Mason Jones one day went on a big run at 170, and if he had weight troubles at 155, I know I wouldn't be very surprised. Like, he's still a young guy, and he's huge to begin with. And he does have one of those weird bodies, because he's not the tallest guy in the world. He's just absurdly thick. And it will be interesting to see if he ever does have to make the eventual move to 170, or if he can stay at 155, because him at lightweight is one of the bigger fighters in this weight division. And again, I know it might not look like it if he just stands up next to a lot of guys, but if you take into consideration how thick he is too, it does matter. And the thing I like about Mason Jones is that he can box you, he can wrestle you, he can box on the inside and on the outside, and if he really needs to use his defense well, he can. Like, he's not someone who gets hit clean all that often, and when he does hit clean, and when he does get hit clean, he eats it pretty well. Again, I hold Mike Davis's punching power, like, really, really high up there in the lightweight division. And the fact that Mason Jones is able to just eat clean shots from Davis was really, really impressive to me. And it's nothing against David in this matchup. It's just, I doubt he's going to be able to catch Jones early and put him away.
Yeah, I mean, hewing from rooting for the Onama upset. And when I look at this fight, I do see it as a lot of fun. I think Onama is going to be one of those guys that's around forever at 145. I mean, he was 10-0 as an amateur, 8-0 as a pro, plenty of finishes. And Kurt Tar is saying short notice fighters coming in as big underdog, getting quick KOs. Look at Vanessa Demopoulos. But when I look at this fight, yeah, I mean, in terms of the odds, Mason Jones actually is a giant favorite. He opened somewhere in the realm of a minus 700. He's a minus 440, so the money has come in on Onama, who opened a plus 450. He's a plus 335. Let's have a look for the fun of it at Fight Night Picks over on the Instagrams. We have 76% Jones, 24% Onama. So the Onama fans, they're very loud, and I've seen them there all week. Nobody said we doubted them, because at the end of the video, I did a little bit of CYA and said, don't doubt us, because I really do like them. And I can see myself, if Onama gets, like, even a decent fighter at 155, I'm sure the support's going to be there. But for me, I do like Jones with the wrestling, with the very crisp and technical boxing. Onama's the type of guy, though. He can fight forwards or backwards. He can fight southpaw and orthodox. I like his boxing a little bit more from southpaw. And against legitimate Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belts, he could get out of bad positions and actually submitted one. I think he has an interesting game, but I like Jones.
I don't think the kicks are going to matter, because when Mason Jones fights you, you're fighting in a phone booth. He doesn't give you the range to really let off all those big techniques. That's the thing, unless Onama can catch him with something on the way in, which is really hard to do against a guy like Mason Jones, because Jones can throw with a crazy amount of volume too, and it's really hard to kind of make the decision, okay, am I blocking punches right now, or am I going to answer with my own offense? And it's a really hard ask to do in your UFC debut up a weight class against a really talented fighter like Mason Jones.
Big time fight in our next one. We have South Korea's Junyoung Park taking on Gregory Rodriguez. Let us know over in the comments section who you have in this fight. Start of the week, tip my hand. I had Park, and I see this one as a very, very close fight, Matt, because for both guys, little bit of power, little bit of boxing, decent little ground game. Junyoung Park has really shored up that hole that was wrestling defense at the start of his career when he came into the UFC against Fluffy Hernandez, who it turns out is better than, beating guys like Jordan Wright. Like, he's a better fighter than a lot of people thought. And for Park, he switched that into, okay, I'll be the offensive guy. And if you look at it, in his career before he came to the UFC, a win over Ray Cooper III, a win over Glenn Sparv, those are very, very good wins. And since that loss to Fluffy Hernandez, he's been on a heater. For Rodriguez, he got knocked out by Jordan Williams, so there was that, and then since then he's looked absolutely amazing. So this fight is a very, very tricky one. If you're trying to break this one down, again, for me, and I said the pick was Park, I like every single aspect of his game. He is a very technical fighter, and if it's not working here, let's just switch something up a little bit, and then we'll find success over there. For Rodriguez, I think he definitely has an opportunity to get a knockout win, maybe a defensive submission, and those are the bread and butter of Park. But what do you see here?
I like Rodriguez on the feet quite a bit, because these are my problems with Park, and I still have Park to win this fight, but again, I feel like we boosted him up almost too much now. I gotta bring Park down a little bit, because I don't think his wrestling defense has gotten all that much better. I just think he's figured out, hey, if I'm on top of my opponent, they can't take me down.
Eddie Fry saying, where the hell's Josh Emmett? He just had a fight announced.
Yeah, Josh Emmett's fighting Dan Ige?
Yeah, Dan Ige.
Yeah, that's going to be a phenomenal fight. I know I'm really excited for it. It'll be nice to see Josh Emmett back. But, the thing about Park is that, yes, you kind of paint the picture of, the perfect Park storyline of, oh, if you're the striker, I'm the wrestler. If you're the wrestler, I'm the striker. But I don't think he can go out there and beat top-level strikers with good takedown defense. I really don't. I think he can beat good-level strikers with poor takedown defense. I think he can beat fighters who have a massive hole in their game. But I do think once Park starts to fight those, borderline top 15 guys, those guys who just have more well-rounded games, I do think he will start to struggle at that point. Now, with Rodriguez, I don't really think he's going to be running into that type of a fighter in this, because with Rodriguez, you sort of mentioned it. He's good on the feet, and he's good with his defensive submissions, but other than the big flashes, I don't think he can go out there and just win moments and win minutes from Park. So unless Rodriguez is able to get some sort of a big finish or do something really flashy, I do like the consistency of Park throughout 15 minutes in this matchup.
And that's why I have him in this one. So again, just my 2 cents saying Park works behind a steady jab. 100% he is. It's one of his best weapons. He is the underdog. He opened a minus 170. He's a plus 114. All of the late monies come in on Rodriguez, who opened a plus 145. He's now a minus 136. We have to look at the Fight Night Picks votes at Fight Night Picks. 52% Park to 48% Rodriguez. So it is very close. I like Park in this one. It seems like almost everybody except for just my 2 cents and a few others are going with Rodriguez. William Tyner bringing up a good point. Park versus Tafon fight makes me worried about my Rodriguez pick. But in this one I've got Park. You've got Park?
Yep.
All right, Matt. We move into our next one. Nikolai Negumereanu taking on Ike Villanueva. Nikolai weighing in half a pound under 205 at 204.5. The Bend. Isn't that 91.9 in Moncton? I have a lot of fun with these 0.5s. Taking on Villanueva. Villanueva's got to box his ears in and knock him out in the first round. And that's the only way I see Villanueva winning.
This is going to sound disrespectful, but I don't mean it this way. Ike Villanueva is one of the most one-dimensional fighters in the UFC. He is, but he's really good at that one dimension. He's a good boxer on the inside. If you leave yourself wide open, if you lunge into range, he can make you pay for it. He's done it to, 18 guys in the past, and he does have really big power. It's just, with Villanueva and really with his game, it's one of those cases of, unless you leave yourself wide open, it's really hard for him to capitalize on the hole. He's not the type of fighter like a Uriah Hall, to where it's okay, the smallest little opening, you give him an inch, he takes a mile. With Villanueva, look at his win over, Vinicius Moreira. Vinicius got knocked out a lot in the UFC, and he was known as being a guy who leaves himself wide open when he throws his strikes, and Villanueva did a great job. He was able to time him coming down the middle. It was a really nice performance. I just don't think Negumereanu is going to fight like that at all, and he's such a superior grappler to what Villanueva is. This is a really hard stylistic matchup for Villanueva. Normally they give him guys who are at least going to play on the feet a little bit, going to entice him into one of those crazy brawls, but with Negumereanu, I really think he just takes him down and mops him on the floor pretty quick.
CTK, where's Joshua Hart with the FMP betting guide? It's on the website. Go into previews on the website. It's over there. And somebody else asked earlier on, where can I vote for the other fights, not just the main event? At Fight Night Picks on Instagram, on the Instagram story, every single week before question mark kicks. You can find them there. There's also a pop-up at the start of every single individual video that says find it over on the IG, so you can find it right there. Yeah, when I look at this one, that first fight too, there was a lot of fence grabs with Negumereanu and Safarov that kind of muddied the water. In terms of the odds for this one, as I play around with the mouse and I almost lost it, that would have been a lot of fun. Big clang. Nikolai Negumereanu open to minus 300. He's a minus 243 right now. Ike Villanueva open to plus 250. He's a plus 196. Todd hitting us up in the super chat.
Thanks, Todd.
Saying this one's for the cheese fund. Listen, and a few people asked, do you actually not like the cheese slices? I hate cheese slices unless they're normal cheese, not like American cheese or
There's
like
a time and a
Kraft
place
ones.
for them. If you need a cheese that melts, American cheese is by far the best meltable cheese, but it's not the best for flavor. You can do 1,000 types of cheese that taste way better.
Landon Blankenship saying Ricci or Oliveira. Are you related to Rodrigo? I love his glasses, but for me, I've got Ricci in that one. 76% at Fight Night Picks have Nega Mariano. I'd consider him maybe in a parlay spot, but I actually have the second leg of the Fight Night Picks question mark kicks parlay in this one. Listen, I have this fight to go to decision as a minus 150 between Grant and Trinaldo, and if you parlay that with Molina at a minus 170, it shakes out at a plus 165. So that's what I'm going with. Really, really small. Like it's a $5 pro line for the fun. But Matt, Trinaldo taking on Dwight Grant. Grant's got that finishing ability, and
So does Trinaldo.
Trinaldo does too. He obviously did when he took on Jai Herbert. This one at 170 pounds, it's such an interesting fight. Trinaldo coming in 169.5.
That's why I'm kind of surprised you decided to put the goes to decision on the parlay, because I think this fight ends in a finish one way or the other. I personally don't think it goes to a decision. I think even if Trinaldo wins, there's a very high likelihood he is able to finish Dwight Grant, because this is what a lot of people have been focusing on, and myself included. Francisco Trinaldo is 43 years old, but you gotta look at it at the flip side too. Dwight Grant's not a young man. It's not like Grant's not 27-year-old.
Less shot-born, though.
Much less shop-worn, but still, it's not like he's just some prospect who's just, making their way into the sport, trying to make their name off of Trinaldo. This isn't like when Alexander Hernandez fought Francisco Trinaldo, for instance. This isn't two guys who are in sort of similar spots of their career, and I really just mean that because both guys need a win, but it's not necessary to keep their job. I don't think if Trinaldo loses this, the UFC is going to cut him. It's the same thing with Dwight Grant. I do think they can have fun fights in the future, but this is the thing. I just don't really have a lot of confidence in Trinaldo's ability to eat the power shots of Dwight Grant in this fight. And I do think Grant's going to land at least one punch throughout this fight. Maybe Trinaldo can eat one, maybe he can eat two, maybe he can eat three. But in his 40s, I don't really trust his durability in this matchup. And even with Grant, Grant's been caught clean by guys throughout his UFC tenure. And although he hasn't always gone down from them, he has been hit clean a lot throughout his UFC career. And that's why I do see this fight being a finish one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it for Grant, he loses by finish to Daniel Rodriguez, he loses by split to Zach Otto. His other fights, he finished Carlo Pedersoli, he won a split decision against Alan Jouban, he won a split decision against Stefan Sekulic. For Trinaldo, the 5-on-in, loses to Hernandez in a fight that he won. He beats Bobby Green by decision, he beats John McDessie by decision, he finishes Jai Herbert, he loses a decision to Muslim Salikov. That's where I can see the trend, and I do, again, I like Trinaldo in this fight, and I like him to win by decision. I think this is going to be a fun one. And Todd saying Parlay Buster is Matt, so on and so forth. A lot of cheese chat over in the conversation. I said at the start of the show when we were trending around 100 people watching, I said we were going to get over 500. We're over that. But only 181 likes. It takes 2 seconds. I would appreciate it. And you know what? If we get over 300 likes, I'll put hot sauce on cheese. I'll get that crazy. Cheese talk continues. I love the fight. We're disagreeing on the pick, though?
Yeah, I like Dwight Grant in this one.
All right, that much is fair. We move into our next one. Alex Caceres taking on Seungwoo Choi.
Lizard Lick towing without a doubt. I forgot that show even existed until 5 seconds ago.
There's a guy I work with, and we were going to see some customers, and all of a sudden he starts talking about Lizard Lick towing. It's his favorite show.
How could it not be?
It's his favorite show.
You're hooked after one.
That much is true. All right, so this fight, Matt, Seungwoo Choi and Alex Caceres. Heater of a run. Both guys on win streaks for Alex Caceres. He's beating some interesting names at 145 pounds. Guys that probably not going to crack the top 15. And for Alex Caceres, he's a 50-50 guy with guys in the top 15. He is one of those fighters, and he's been around forever. And for Seungwoo Choi, he's a guy that, listen, if that prospect's able to get going, everybody's been saying, hey, he is or could be a top 15 guy at 145. A dynamic division, but one where you could see Choi making moves and starting grooves before they knew we were gone. So I really love this fight, and for Seungwoo Choi, he can get it done in the scrambles. He can get it done with his takedown offense, and his boxing is so crisp and clean with no caffeine. He's got that pop at the end of his shots.
It's like a Sprite.
Caceres is, though, that tricky guy that can nullify those kind of X factors in guys' games. So that's what makes this one so much fun.
I agree with everything, but Alex Caceres is more like 20-80 against the top 15. I don't really know if he's a 50-50 guy against the top 15. I'm really excited about the newer run Caceres has gone on throughout this sort of later stage of his UFC career, because no one really knows where Alex Caceres is at in his UFC career. He came in very young. He's really developed his skills as of late, but he is very similar to the fighter that did come into the UFC. He still does the same things. He's just gotten better at those things, and it's been really interesting to see sort of the overall career progression of Caceres, because again, his game's similar. It's just the level of opposition has changed throughout his tenure. And if you look at his last string of wins, I would say that those three fighters are a little bit less than the fighters he was fighting before, and that's good. Like, it gave Caceres the opportunity to go back, reevaluate his game, add the new areas, or sort of improve on the areas he felt like he needed to grow in. I just think Sungwoo Choi is eventually destined to be at least a top, 15 to 10 guy. I don't know if he'll get any higher than that, but I love the well-roundedness in his game. I love the power he possesses on the feet. There's just a lot to like out of Sungwoo Choi, and the thing that everyone likes to bring up is, oh, he lost to Movsar Evloev. He lost to Gavin Tucker. But, who cares? Evloev is a phenomenal fighter who is another one of those really well-rounded guys out there who can wrestle. And Gavin Tucker's, on his best day, can beat pretty much anybody. On his worst day, can lose to pretty much anybody,
and that fight was in Canada, too.
Exactly. So for Choi, I think he's finally starting to hit a groove of his own in this fight. And that's what's so exciting, because whoever does win this fight is going to get a big, big, big opportunity next. I don't think they're going to get a ranked fighter, but I could see Choi getting a Cub Swanson, maybe. One of those bigger name guys for maybe near the later stages of their career. But I do still like Choi in this one.
What about a former opponent of Alex Caceres and Cub Swanson, Crone Gracie? Where you at, Crone? Whatever happened to him?
Never thought of that.
Crone who? That 209 team. I mean, the only hope they have right now is Nick Maximov, and that's it. But Matt, yeah, I look at this fight. I've got Sungwoo Choi at Fight Night Picks. 77% of the fans have him to win. If we look at the odds for this one, because my memory can't remember where they were at. Choi opened a -180. He's a -289. Caceres opened a +155. He's a +232. I've got Choi, and again, I think Sungwoo Choi fights him almost in that Suman Mokhtarian way. He just marches him down, gets him in tricky positions. That's how he's able to get the win. George Grun saying, take a shot of Pori hot sauce mixed with proper 12 if you guys get above 300 likes.
It's noon here, and I've got stuff to do in the afternoon,
yeah, it's noon here, and I told you I'd do it with cheese, George, but I appreciate the super chat. We're going to get ready for the pay-per-view after this.
Now, I was going to say, there is a fight companion next weekend, though.
Yeah, we were going to do the,
You're crazy.
The graphics, and then the notes, and then tomorrow we're going to film. So Inside Baseball there, but we're not even close to 300 likes. You got to get up there. I'll do the cheese and the hot sauce. We'll put a little spritz of it. Matt, we have Jessica Rose, first name hyphenated, Clark, taking on Jocelyn Edwards. There was a comment out there from the guy who markets Jocelyn Edwards in Panama who said, A, you guys are pronouncing her name very well, and B, thanks for really getting things going. So I really do love this fight. Clark has had a lot of shine this week in terms of the media. And listen, we got to go and talk about this card because it's been Vettori Costa heavy, the weigh-in drama, so on and so forth. The co-main event, listen, Grant Dawson kind of made fun of Ricky Glenn's name, and then he walked it back and apologized. There's no hype on that co-main event, by the way. None. Arlovsky Felipe had way more than this week's co-main, but Clark has gotten a lot of shine, and she's had UFC interviews. I've seen it on Twitter. I've seen it on Instagram, and I haven't even been on social media that much this week. And then she had that weird, hey, Dominic Cruz shouldn't have said what he said about Hans Molenkamp. He kind of sewered the rest of us, and we could have lost our sponsorships. But when I look at this fight, Matt, for Clark, she looked amazing in her last fight. If she can kind of overcome the injury woes like she said she has, she made weight, she looked great, she looks great in those training videos, and she's at least working on her knees unlike a Thiago Santos type, she has a great opportunity in this one. For Edwards, very, very flashy and impressive striker when she's getting things going, when she's fighting the Wu Yanans of the world and the fighters outside of the UFC. Her last fight against Carol Hossa definitely didn't go her way, but I do think this is an interesting one in terms of matchmaking here.
This is one of those fights where it's can the range fighter keep range or can the pressure fighter pressure? And I don't think this is going to be one of those, Jocelyn Edwards shows us a new aspect of her game. I really don't. I think this is going to be as clear-cut as any fight on this card. Either Jessica Rose Clark is able to pressure up against the cage, make this dirty like she was able to against Sarah Alpar, maybe lay some borderline knees while she's at it, but when Clark is at her best, she is making the fight ugly. And I know that's just a very easy thing to say, so let me just describe it a little bit more, I guess. She likes to get the underhook, and she likes to go for a lot of single leg takedowns. But when she's going for a lot of those single legs, she has an arm open to damage her opponent too. Like, what Clark does is she's very, very active, and she drains the energy of her opponent, and that's why the footwork and the overall cardio and fitness of Edwards is going to be so important for this matchup. If she's on the outside moving around a lot, I can't believe I'm about to say this, and everyone's going to sigh right now, similar to how Tommy Hearns did against Marvin Hagler, then maybe she could tire herself out and eventually sort of get caught up against the cage against Clark, and that's the last place that you want to find yourself. This is the other thing I'll say against Edwards. I didn't think she looked great in her UFC debut. She definitely won it, but again, she wasn't able to land a lot of clean shots against Wu Yanan, and that was just a little odd to see. It's not like she lost the fight, but she did get tired as that fight went on, and I do think that if you're getting tired in a fight where you dictated the pace, I do worry about your cardio against somebody whose whole game plan is built around the fact that I'm going to set a pace on my opponent. I'm going to keep on marching forward, and that's why I like Clark in this matchup. I think if she can close the distance and make this fight ugly enough, it's not a matter of I have to prove my point and mix in these new strikes and the new striking I've been working on. I think if she can just make this fight ugly, wrestle quite a bit, she'll be able to drain the gas tank of Edwards.
You're totally wrong about Jocelyn Edwards' debut. She actually increased her output and increased her significant strikes as that fight went on.
Craig, she marched forward a lot against someone who is not near the level of Clark.
Jocelyn Edwards is going to win this fight with her striking. In terms of the odds for this one, Matt, you have Clark is the favorite, pretty decent favorite, open to -150. Then went down to a -180 or so. Then you could have got her at -135. Now she's a -163 average on best fight odds. Right now, Edwards is at a +135. This should be a great fight. 254 likes. We're getting close to that 300. At Fight Night Picks for the votes on this one. 57% Clark to 43% Edwards. We're split on the pick here.
Yeah, I like Clark.
I've got another underdog going with Edwards. It's an underdog heavy card for me. Grant Dawson taking on Ricky Glenn. I think Grant Dawson wins this fight 9 times out of 10.
I was going to say it might be an underdog heavy card, but this is not one where I see the underdog having a lot of success. And it's nothing against Ricky Glenn. Like, his game is sort of built to beat a guy like Grant Dawson. He's got good movement on the feet. He's got good striking power. He's got good volume. Like, he is a really fun fighter to watch, and he does offer those primary wrestlers a really, really tough look. It's just, I think Grant Dawson's on like that like top tier level of wrestler and grappler to the point where unless you have a natural wrestling and grappling background, it's going to be really tough for you to just stop his shots. Like, we saw Leonardo Santos have trouble in the grappling department with a guy like Grant Dawson, so I do think Ricky Glenn's also going to have a lot of trouble if this fight does hit the mat, and I do expect it to get there at some point.
Ricky Glenn's chances are definitely on the feet in this fight. I don't think that's crazy to say. He's a guy that spent a lot of time at Team Alpha Male working his ground game 100%. When you're there, and, you know, you look at Ricky Glenn and you look at a guy that he fought with before, like a Georgi Karhanyan. I love guys like that. Like, they've been grinding. They can get it done in many different ways. Gazbach says Glenn by omoplata. But, yeah, for me, I've got Dawson in this fight. I mean, he came in, half a pound more? Not that that means a whole hell of a lot. But Grant Dawson, big guy. The one thing, and I think I even put it in the thumbnail for this one, is that out of Grant Dawson. Like, this is striking defense where Glenn can just come in with the hooks, try and really attack him. But for me, I have a hard time going with Glenn in a fight like this. It feels like a bit of a setup, and I see the comment from Clay saying, can't get excited about Glenn. I think Dawson gets an easy unanimous decision win. I can get excited for Ricky Glenn. Go back and watch his fight against the aforementioned Gavin Tucker if you want to see a good one for him. The odds are crazy. Corey McGregor's saying it. Like, do you even put a play on Grant Dawson at like, -518, whereas Ricky Glenn's at a +385? I don't see that as a giant boost. First Last saying it's a little concerning if you watch that Santos fight. But, yeah, for me, I've got Dawson. He's such a big body, and he's a guy that can really, really kind of get in there, make it dirty, so I do like him here.
And I'm worried about Dawson's cardio a little bit down at 145 pounds, but I do think he's cutting a lot less weight now, and it's a good sign when a fighter does finally realize, like, oh, hey, maybe it's a better idea to not kill myself before a fight. And I do think Grant Dawson fits into this weight class perfectly. I do think there's a spot for him, and I think there's a lot of fun fights in the future for him to be matched up in.
There was a question there earlier that said, how long have you guys been watching MMA? I was born in 94, so my first thing that I ever watched on TV outside in the real world was the early UFCs. I've been on Dan Severn. I've been on, Ken 2008, 2009. The Shogun, who Ahuas, Lyoto Machida, Chael Sonnen, John Jones. Those are guys that got us into MMA. The last guy that I said really kind of stings these days. But yeah, those are the guys that we were watching then. GSP.
Yeah, I like Shogun a lot.
Books back there. Yeah, that's how we get into it. So yeah, both of us going with Dawson. And then Matt, for the main event, we have Paulo Costa taking on Marvin Vettori. And at the start of the week, we both had Marvin Vettori. And at the end of the week, those odds really reflected Vettori more so than they did at the start of the week. And there's been a lot less people saying Costa by knockout. I've kind of heard those screams turn into like echoes and whispers now at this point. So listen, there are a lot of people that definitely do like Costa. And I think round 1, maybe even round 2, it's going to all depend on how well Marvin Vettori is able to implement his game plan and work in his takedowns with his boxing here.
I don't know if I agree with the whole round 1, round 2 thing with Costa. Now, I agree with you in terms of he can defend the takedowns that early with relative ease, but I do think Costa's still a dangerous fighter later on in this fight. If you go back to
when?
Look at when Francis Ngannou fought Stipe Miocic
Different guys.
Craig, you can't just get angry. Listen to me. Even when two guys are tired, like look when Marvin Vettori fought Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's not a dangerous striker at all. He lit Marvin Vettori up in the 5th round of their fight on the feet.
What are you talking about? Kevin Holland's not a dangerous striker?
But he was able to land on Marvin Vettori in the 5th round. If you're not a dangerous striker and you're able to land on him in the 5th round,
dangerous striker.
Then I am worried about a guy like Paulo Costa with his power throughout this fight. I just worry about the whole mindset of Paulo Costa in the UFC at this point. Like, you could absolutely dominate it in your biggest opportunity ever against Israel Adesanya. Everybody witnessed that. The whole conversation since that fight hasn't been like, oh, how does Paulo get back up to the title? It's just sort of been like, hey, where has he been? It's been a massive layoff since that fight. Because you have to remember, Vettori and Costa both had the exact same last opponent. It's just Vettori's the one having this really quick turnaround. I worry about everything I've seen out of Costa in this week. I like Vettori at the start of the week because of his cardio, because of his overall wrestling. I like him a lot more now at this point. And I know we always bring up the stat. What was it when Darren Till fought Wonderboy and it was fighters who had missed weight were doing very, very well for that while? I look at it a different way. I think when you're fighting a guy who uses their cardio as a weapon, the last thing I want is for you to show up overweight and not that dedicated to making your weight cut. I like Marvin Vettori a whole heck of a lot more now than I did the start of the week.
Garrett hitting us up in the super chat saying that Costa couldn't make weight twice, Vettori all day. I mean, I don't know if it's the wine. I don't know if it's the Henny. I don't know if he can blame it on the alcohol. I don't like the excuses. I don't like how we're making it all a big joke either. It's not gamesmanship. Even Nick Diaz and the whole Robbie Lawler thing, that's not gamesmanship. It's chicken shit is what it is. So when I look at this one, yeah, I like Vettori, who's now all of a sudden a fan favorite. And I bet you 2 years ago, if I went, hey, you think Marvin Vettori and Corey Anderson are going to become fan favorites? Do you think anybody would agree with that?
No.
Just like me going, hey, 2 years ago, Alex Caceres and Sungwoo Choi are destined for great runs. It's insane. But yeah, for me, I like the guy who I'm assuming hasn't had a hair transplant yet in his young life.
I still don't know what you were disagreeing about with me, with my breakdown on Costa and Kevin Holland. Like, I think Costa has big power. He can land late. I think Vettori's shown that he does eat shots and his hands do come down as fights go on. So if Vettori can't finish Costa, Costa will be dangerous for as long as the fight goes on.
Incognito, you haven't been watching Corey Anderson over with Bellator. He definitely is a fan favorite now. All right, Matt, what we do with question mark kicks every single week. If you missed any of the show, we're going to go back all the way up and down through this entire card. Vettori Costa notwithstanding, there's a lot of really good fights on this one. Matt, almost 600 tuning in right now. This is one of the more successful episodes of Question Mark Kicks in quite some time. And if you're excited about this card, next weekend's card's an absolute banger. We'll have the picks and predictions out a little bit early. We're going to be doing our graphics and our notes up after this one. And we're also going to be doing a lot of fun stuff for that one. Question Mark Kicks. And then, as always, the fight companion as well. We're 20 likes shy, Matt. I don't know. Should I get the cheese and the hot sauce? We'll see what happens. But it is a very, very good card. What's the fight that you're most looking forward to on this card?
Probably the main event, to be completely honest. Because if Marvin Vettori does win, I'm curious to see what the play is going to be. Because right now, there's sort of Derek Brunson out there. He's not matched up. Jared Cannonier, we don't really know what's happening right now. Just there's not a lot of really good storylines on this card right now. Other than the main event and sort of the rise to stardom, if you will, of Marvin Vettori, there's not a lot of, what can we look forward to next, I guess, on this card. So I'm sort of stuck with picking the main event.
Lacerda Molina is the one that I'm definitely looking forward to. Ignorant MMA saying any Bellator. Well, listen, our own John Franklin couldn't make it over to Russia to cover this one. So it really is tricky. And yeah, if you want to see more Bellator, let us know. Obviously, PFL's got a big card coming up next weekend. The debut of Omari Akhmedov over there with the PFL colors. I didn't even know that he was gone. Truth be told, I thought he was still hanging around, hovering in and out of the rankings. But Matt, we throw it on down back to the start of the card. Unpopular pick. I've got Jonathan Martinez in this one, but again, it's going to be one or the other. It's a 50-50 fight. I throw out all those tropes, but it is a great one. And for, I'm really struggling here right now, but for Lazishvili, if he's going to win, he's going to get it down to the mat quick, and he's going to make it a very dominant fight here.
I agree, but I do like the movement of Jonathan Martinez and just his overall ability to keep range throughout the fight, so I do like Jonathan Martinez in this one.
Matt, you got called a casual in the comments section. That's a very educated comment. Livinha Souza taking on Randa Markos. I've got the underdog Markos here.
I like Livinha Souza, but again, I don't have that much confidence in this pick. If Randa Markos is going to win, she's going to go out there, use her wrestling, use her cardio. If Souza's able to at least defend some of those takedown attempts, and even mix in some of her own wrestling, I think she'll be able to get it done.
Jeff Molina taking on Daniel Lacerda, Da Silva, Lacerda. For me, this is going to be an awesome fight. First leg of the question mark kicks parlay on the little tiny pro line. I've got Molina, but I love the fight.
Yeah, I've got Molina in this one, but this one could, we don't have this as a fight of the night because we think Molina's just going to wash Da Silva out of there. So I do think it'll be a phenomenal fight, but I still have Molina.
All right, Matt, our next one, we have Khama taking on Jai Herbert. I've got Jai Herbert, but again, you talk about in terms of least confident picks, this is one, glass cannons.
Yeah, whoever lands first, and I know this gets said a lot, but whoever does land first, I'm pretty confident is going to get knocked out. I don't have any confidence in the durability of Khama, and even though Craig has Jai Herbert, I doubt he has that much confidence in the overall durability of Jai Herbert either. So to me, it really is just clean and cut and dry as whoever lands first. I do think Khama has the slightly better long-range weapons, so if he is able to catch Herbert on the way in, he should be able to put him away. But again, this is not a confident pick whatsoever.
Then go to the next fight.
All right, so for the next one, we've got Jamie Pickett, I believe?
Matt doesn't know how to run a mouse. All right, get out of here. Jamie Pickett's taking on Laureano Staropoli, and this is a great fight because, you know what? Laureano is a guy that you thought at 170 pounds he'd have a lot more success, and then it just didn't happen. You get a win over an OG, a former title challenger in Thiago Alves, and that's kind of been the height and the ceiling for Staropoli. You come in, you make a big bang, and then that's been about it. On a losing streak. You hate to see it, and for Jamie Pickett, it has not been roses in the UFC. I mean, Jordan Wright, he gets knocked out in that one, and a lot of people very down on Wright. They're very critical when we picked him to beat Julian Marquez, who just didn't make it. So in this fight, really, really a tricky one. What are you saying here?
I like Staropoli in this. I think he's the more active guy. I think if he can mix in the takedown. No, I understand. Pickett is a really dangerous grappler, but if you could just use the threat of the takedown to really open up your striking, I think Laureano has a great chance to win this fight. Although, both guys really, really need a win. Neither guy can afford a loss at this stage of their UFC careers.
Hot cheese. I've got Pickett in this one. Long-range weapons, and I actually like him if it goes to the ground. So that's where I'm going with this one. Tabatha Ricci taking on Maria Oliveira. And Matt, this is one of those fights where, again, you have all those skills outside of the cage, similar to Stephanie Egger. She was able to put it together against Shanna Young. Obviously a fight that wasn't on short notice against a striker. Can Ricci do it against somebody like a Maria Oliveira? Iron Martian saying, where are y'all from? From Canada. I got a Roots shirt on.
New Brunswick.
Yeah, for me, I've got Ricci, and like Corey McGregor says, Ricci all day.
I've got Ricci, but again, she needs to show me a little bit more. If she goes out there and looks really impressive in this fight, then I will have much more confidence picking her in the future. It's just she's left a little bit to be desired so far throughout her tenure, or just throughout her career to me. So I think if she's able to get a really nice win over Oliveira, then I'll finally jump on board. But I do think Ricci will get the win.
Question from Ignorant MMA. You got a World Series pick? Nobody can see it back here, and I dropped part of it. There's a PSA Gem Mint 10 Yordan Alvarez rookie card. I've got 3 Yordan rookie cards back right there. They're all PSA graded. I've got the Stros.
What?
They're going to beat the Braves or the Dodgers.
I want the Braves to win because I hate the Astros and the Dodgers. There you go. I like the Yankees.
Mason Jones taking on David Onama. Not very interesting fight because, again, I think Onama is going to be a guy that's around for a very long time. but I hate to say it, like, I like the heavy favorite quite a bit in this one.
Yeah, he might be around for a long time, but this won't be the performance to then go back and say, like, remember how good he looked against Mason Jones? I think Mason's got this one in the bag. I really do. Just stylistically, this is a tough matchup for Onama because he's going to need that range to get off his kicks, and I just don't think Jones is going to allow him that distance.
MPTV asked if it snows in New Brunswick. Yeah, it snows a lot. Jun Young Park taking on Gregory Rodriguez. Absolutely love this fight. I think it's a great one. And again, when you look at this one, definitely great opportunities for both guys to get the win. But for me, I've got Jun Young Park. I'd stay away from a bet, but I do like Park here.
Yeah, I like Park's ability to just mix in his wrestling a little bit more. And he is the more mixed martial arty of the two. I do like his wrestling, and I do like his overall volume punching in this fight, but this will be a really, really entertaining matchup. Like, I do think this will be a fun fight.
Mixed martial arty? Kevin Holland's not a good striker.
You're the one who said Kevin Holland's not a good striker, not me. You said he's not.
That.
No, you said Kevin Holland's not dangerous. Don't.
You're the one that said it.
No, I didn't.
I was just moving it forward.
Those people are going to defend me.
Nikolai Negumereanu taking on Ike Villanueva. Who was in the wrong? We're both going with Transylvania area man, Nikolai Negumereanu.
This could be a tough matchup for Villanueva. Again, unless he is able to land that one big or clean shot early on, I just don't like him in this matchup.
All right, Matt. Next one, we have Grant Trinaldo, second leg of the question mark kicks parlay. I've got this one to go the distance, so it's that and Molina. That's what I'm going with. But yeah, in this one, big time fight. I've got Trinaldo, the old Brazilian.
I can see a world where Trinaldo wins this one, and I do think this is a much more fun fight than it should have been. Than a lot of other people do. I think Dwight Grant has a great ability to fight on the outside, get a knockout win, but I think Trinaldo can have a lot of success too with his kicks and just overall with his movement. I think this will be a really fun fight, but I do like Dwight Grant.
First screaming it. First last, saying Trinaldo all day. Matt Caceres taking on Sungwoo Choi. I love this fight. I've got South Korea's Choi here.
Yeah, I like Choi quite a bit in this matchup.
All right, Matt. Our next one, we have Jessica Rose Clark taking on Jocelyn Edwards. Very, very tough fight, and you can see it both ways, but for me, I've got Jocelyn Edwards here with the striking.
I just like the overall pressure of Jessica Rose Clark in this fight, but I do think it'll be a really fun fight. We're going to learn a lot about both fighters after this, because with Rose Clark, we just don't really know, with Jessica Rose Clark, we just don't really know what she's going to look like after her knee surgery, and for as good as she looked like against Sarah Alpar, it's one thing to look great against Alpar. It'll be another thing to look good against Edwards, who just is a very different opponent. I think it'll be a great fight, but I do have Clark.
VT, Asian MMA has so much potential, but it doesn't take off. I don't know what. What? No. Grant Dawson taking on Ricky Glenn. Grant Dawson, big time.
Yeah, I like Grant Dawson quite a bit in this matchup. I expect to see him in the top 15 of lightweight at some point throughout his career.
All right, Matt. And then in the main event, Paulo Costa and Marvin Vettori. I think Italy takes the win in this one. And then the real question is, who does he fight? Because again, if you look at it for a guy like Marvin Vettori, it's obviously going to help his standing at 185. And some people threw that out there in the comments section this week. And I pointed to the fact that, Marina Rodriguez had a bit of a short notice fight. Now, this was because it was on short notice and both women are professionals. She fought Michelle Waterson at 125. Definitely helped Rodriguez's standings at 115. For this one, it definitely matters for Marvin Vettori at 185. But for Paulo Costa, I think he wins. Cool story, bro. Does he then fight at 205 or does he get a toss-up at 185? It's a really weird one.
It has turned into one of these lose-lose situations for Costa, because if you win, who cares? You're super unprofessional, you made the other guy weigh, 10% of his body weight more, and you won, who cares? And then if you lose, it's okay, you looked terrible your last time out, you didn't look good this time, and you made the UFC jump through a bunch of hoops to actually get to fight week. So I just don't really think Costa set himself up for much success this week, really, but I like Vettori a lot. I like his cardio, I like his output, and I think Vettori is a fighter who, yes, he got beat really badly by Adesanya, but I do think there's a version of Vettori who adds more to his game and who could make the rematch more interesting.
Costa's going to go in there and he's going to look like Roy Jones Jr. when he fought Mike Tyson, like my shirt. It's just going to look bad as it goes on. And I think, the man himself, Marvin Vettori, is going to get the win. So glad that everybody could tune into this episode of Question Mark Kicks. You guys made this one a great one. I ate some hot cheese slices. It was terrible, but overall, I think this is going to be a great card. We're going to throw it on over to our tape study, our graphics to get ready for next weekend. I can't wait for it. Question Mark Kicks 2 hours before the prelims. Then you have the main card fight companion for that one. And it's a hell of a card. It's a great one.
Yeah,
and it's an early one, too.
And it's a free pay-per-view.
For Americans.
For
Canadians, it's not. So that one really sucks, but it should be a lot of fun. Thanks so much to everybody. Again, you guys make this one turn. You guys make this one happen. And I can't wait for those fights next weekend, all 15 of them. Matt, it's been a great time. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. And as we always say, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig
and Matt.